propuestas para disfrutar.
The attacks. And then another insurance company, MetLife, says it stands to lose between $250 and $300 million. However, it says it will do everything possible to pay claims promptly. And car maker Ford reports that it will cut third quarter production by some 110,000 vehicles. That is because transport problems have held up the delivery of needed components.
Well, the New York Stock Exchange is scheduled to reopen Monday after 4 days without the familiar opening bell and these days the ups and downs of the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ. Greg Clarkin reports on what's being done to ensure an orderly resumption of trading.
They washed away the dirt and the grime, hoping to cleanse Wall Street of the remnants of the attacks on the World Trade Center. But inside the New York Stock Exchange, the challenges to restoring trading ran deeper. There are monumental telecommunications obstacles, including making sure electric and phone service will be intact. And then there is the main issue, making sure the sophisticated network that handles the trades for the NYSE can be processed.
The challenge is recreating the network, the interconnected infrastructure that brings 85 million investors individually and another 10,000 institutions from all over the world.
The New York Board of Trade was located in the World Trade Center complex that will have a new facility come Monday.
Well, the major issue is we have to make sure that all of our clearing members are able to receive the trades and to clear them. It's one thing to trade, but if you don't match them and clear them, you've got a serious problem.
All of the trading exchanges will be undergoing extensive testing this weekend to spot potential problems.
I mean, we've got to make sure we have adequate power, we have adequate access to downtown, and that we have the telecommunications capability necessary to carry all of this.
The NYSE and other exchanges will be working through the weekend, testing and retesting computer and telecommunication systems, all in an effort to make sure Monday morning's trading goes smoothly.
Crashing down on them, so that was their main concern. What they have also found is the cockpit and the fuselage of the plane, so that is a big find. Now, since they have found the fuselage, what they'll be doing today is removing the 64 bodies that were on American Airline Flight 77, so they'll be taking those bodies out sometime today. Also last night there was a candlelight vigil. There were a number of local residents that were coming out and that were around the Pentagon area and around the media area, not too far from where I'm sitting right now. They had shirts with flags on them. They had flags draped around them. The little kids came out. The older folks came out. They just wanted to show their patriotism. So they came out and spent several hours holding the candles and just watching the workers as they were lifting the heavy materials and taking care of business. Also, you could see a heavy security presence in and around the Pentagon. Now, security wants to make sure that they check everybody that's leaving and coming from the Pentagon.
Though little's being said officially about the terrorists and their activities, details are now emerging about their painstaking and elaborate plan as investigators try to piece together that evil and unprecedented path.
The first step, get into the country. We don't know when or where that happened, but authorities say some of them entered the U.S. several times on valid passports and visas, and 2 of them managed to get in before their names were put on a government watch list. By July of last year, a group of the suspected hijackers were learning how to fly in American flight schools. 2 of those men, 33-year-old Muhammad Atta and this man, were enrolled at the Huffman Flight School in Venice, Florida.
They indicated to us that they wanted to fly big airplanes back home. They came from another flight school and they were not happy at that flight school and they wanted to finish the training with us.
Rudy Deckers, the owner of the flight school, says they blended in, seemed like average students, if unusually quiet.
There was no socializing. They never talked about religion, not even talked about girls. I mean, 2 subjects are always hot in the aviation industry. It's aviation and girls.
Last November, the pair passed an FAA test, but that had no formal training on how to fly jumbo jets. So how could the novice pilots pull off such massive destruction?
The manuals are very detailed, supported by, training videos or training programs on their pieces. You could gain a lot of understanding of how the airplane would fly.
And in fact, flight manuals were found in a rental car at the Boston airport, where 2 of the hijacked planes took off. Authorities believe other hijackers were also learning the basics of flying at different flight schools across the country. And one had even learned how to handle a commercial jetliner at this renowned Florida flight school.
Today, the Federal Bureau of Investigation released a list of 19 individuals who have been identified as hijackers aboard the 4 airliners that crashed on Tuesday.
But could the 19 hijackers have pulled this off alone?
Authorities say no. In the months leading up to the attacks, each of the teams was aided by people in Virginia, Boston, and New Jersey, who helped them with the details: money, credit cards, rental cars, lodging. Authorities familiar with suspected terrorist Osama bin Laden say he organizes small teams under a coordinating commander, and that in this case, he may have received help from other terrorist kingpins.
Fanatic is actually a very good word to describe them. They are highly motivated, they are highly disciplined, and we underestimate them at our peril.
In fact, it now appears the plotting may have involved as many as 50 other associates and spanned other countries. Mohammed Atta, the novice pilot from Florida, spent some time in Hamburg, Germany earlier this year before returning to the U.S. on May the 2nd. Security officials believe a network of militants in Germany provide fake documents and shelter for Middle Eastern radicals. Back in the U.S., it seems Florida was a key gathering point, though neighbors there had no idea. In Vero Beach, one suspected hijacker had rented a home where he lived a seemingly quiet and uneventful life with his wife and children. In the months before the attack, Mohammed Atta had also settled back into Florida. In August, he rented a single-engine plane, saying he wanted to increase his flying hours. And at some point, he paid $1,500 in cash to use a 727 simulator, like this one.
I feel violated, raped. We provided that kind of expertise to the lowest of mankind.
Now, it's the summer of 2001. The methodical plotting intensifies. The details of the plan crystallize. The week before the attack, 5 Arab men who are believed to have just come into the country from Canada try to rent or buy cell phones in Bangor, Maine. They have no proper ID, so store employees say no, until the men produce $3,000 in cash. They then make their way to Boston, where it appears someone secretly surveyed Logan Airport, possibly with the help of a ramp pass that provides access to secured areas of the airport. Now, authorities believe a special commander is in place, selecting the ill-fated flights and targets. Plans are made for the terrorists to take off from Boston, Washington, and Newark. The goal? Hit the World Trade Center and targets in Washington at roughly the same time. Monday, September the 10th, just a night before the attacks, 3 Middle Eastern men spent hundreds of dollars on lap dances and drinks at this Daytona Beach strip club. They might have blended in here, too, had it not been for something they said.
One of the gentlemen actually making the statement, well, America's going to see blood and wait till tomorrow.
Tuesday morning, Mohammed Atta, the man who trained in Florida, buys a one-way ticket on a flight out of Boston. Other hijackers also purchased one-way tickets. Some bought with a credit card that very morning. 7:58 a.m. The first plane, United Flight 175, departs Boston for Los Angeles. 8 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11, also from Boston to L.A., takes off. 8:21 a.m. A second American flight, number 77, departs Washington for Los Angeles. 8:43 a.m. United Flight 93 leaves Newark for San Francisco. For the passengers, it's travel as usual. They have no idea their demise has already been meticulously planned. This is what is now believed to have happened next. The hijackers, at least 4 to a plane, sit together in rows near the front. Within minutes of takeoff, they commandeer each plane by wielding sharp objects. They threaten and slash flight attendants, and somehow force their way into the cockpits. 8:20 a.m. The first outward sign of trouble. American Flight 11 fails to follow instructions to climb to cruising altitude. Air controllers suspect something is wrong. The plane's transponder, which tells them where the plane is, goes out. On board, Captain John Oganowski reportedly tries to alert them that something is wrong by opening his microphone, allowing controllers to briefly hear the voice of one hijacker. Meanwhile, in the cabin, a flight attendant manages to make a call, warning that a hijacking is underway. 28 minutes later, the jetliner crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. On the other flights, horrifying events are also playing out. Chilling phone calls from passengers to their loved ones, saying goodbye. Some even hear of Flight 11's horrifying end. 9:03 a.m. Unbelievably, the horror is repeated. United 175 from Boston crashes into the South Tower. 9:45 a.m. Another target is hit. American Flight 77 from Dulles slams into Washington's Pentagon. On Flight 93, the last plane in the air, some passengers call home, saying goodbye and vowing to fight the hijackers. 10:10 a.m. on Flight 93, after passengers take on the hijackers, the plane crashes into a field in Pennsylvania, not its intended target. For all the planning, one part of a sinister, secret plot foiled.
It was about 8:45 a.m. when the first plane rammed into one of the World Trade Center's towers in New York, and one naval officer several hundred miles away was watching in shock. He couldn't believe what was happening until it happened to him at this office in the Pentagon. Here's NBC's Ann Thompson.
Tuesday, 7 a.m. It begins just like any other day at the Pentagon. Retired naval officer Jerry Henson arrives for work. Now a civilian, Henson manages counter-drug operations for the Navy. But by 9 a.m., Henson, like the rest of us, is sitting in his first-floor office watching television. He is transfixed by the horrifying images of the World Trade Center coming in from New York.
I was watching the airplane, came around, made a approach, and turned into the second one. So it was clear that it was a terrorist attack, and I just couldn't believe it.
Little did he know that just minutes later, he would be fighting for his own life.
I'm sitting at my desk, and instantly there is a beam laying in my lap, jamming me into the seat so that I can't move. There's another piece of furniture or something against my head. I knew it wasn't a bomb. I knew it must have been another airplane.
As soon as Kathy Henson, Jerry's wife of 38 years, heard about the attack, she reached for the phone.
And I started calling Jerry immediately. I tried the work number knowing that wouldn't work, but then we did the cell phone and nothing.
It's total blackness, and there is billowing smoke beginning to come in. It didn't get hot instantly, but you could tell there were fires not too far away because you could feel the heat of them.
As a pilot in the U.S. Navy, Jerry Henson has felt the heat many times before. In fact, Henson flew 72 combat reconnaissance missions over Vietnam, launching from aircraft carriers, commanding attack squadrons, dodging enemy fire, coming home without so much as a scratch.
That was another miracle of my life. You could fly right through the flak and think you couldn't possibly make it through and come back intact. No, I was never injured or had a fragment strike my airplane.
But on Tuesday, in what most in the military might think is a cushy job at the Pentagon, Jerry is in trouble. Jerry Henson is close to losing his life working at his desk, an irony not lost on his wife.
And I'm thinking, you know, Jerry flew in Vietnam all those years, and he got home safe. And I'm sitting here saying, my God, he's going to get killed as a civilian sitting at the desk at the Pentagon.
We continually yelled for help, but we couldn't hear anybody else. There were no voices.
I didn't think he was alive. I thought I'd lost my husband.
I figure I've got maybe 5 more minutes of life because the black smoke is so bad that it cuts off your oxygen.
And then a glimmer of hope.
I see a white light coming in from the outside. I'm waving at him. He says, I'm a doctor. Are you hurt? I said, I'm pinned down. I can't move. So he lays on his back and he puts his feet against the object, and he lifts it. Maybe I have no idea how he lifted it because I hadn't even been able to shake it.
Jerry remembers being dragged out of the building to safety. He doesn't know by whom.
These guys had wet T-shirts over their head, and they were as much at risk as I was just by coming in the room. So undoubtedly, they saved my life.
Master Sergeant James Smith and